Well, thank all of you for coming out, and really want to thank my colleague French Hill from Arkansas for coming here. We had a great coalition meeting to talk about the National Flood Insurance Program and especially the challenges and problems faced by Risk Rating 2.0, not only the way it's being implemented, but the lack of transparency by FEMA, the refusal for them to meet with the people who actually run and build levees, run flood protection districts. And when we go to Washington, we've brought some of these flood protection leaders up. FEMA won't even sit down and explain their methodology, yet they're handing out premium increases that are dramatically higher than they were before, basing it on Risk Rating 2.0, yet they won't even explain how Risk Rating 2.0 works to people who build levees and understand what mitigation is all about. With that, I know French has to head back to the airport to get back to Arkansas. I can't thank him enough for coming, listening. French is already a leader on the House Financial Services Committee, but depending on how things go next week in the next Congress, French could be one of the chairmen of one of the subcommittees on the Financial Services Committee, which is the committee where the flood insurance program has jurisdiction, so the committee that actually deals with the National Flood Insurance Program. So he listened, heard from a lot of different people, leaders in our community. You see all the parish presidents up here, Gino Wink and others that are part of the national coalition, talk to realtors, talk to people in the insurance industry that are dealing with this problem, as well as heads of flood protection districts throughout the New Orleans region. So with that, I want to bring up my colleague and friend, French Hill.
Thanks, Steve. Well, let me thank all the parish presidents and my good friend Steve Scalise for being available today to have this really constructive visit about the challenges that we have in a flood program that works for all Americans, that's got the authority of a program, that's got financial stability, that brings certainty, that is transparent, and that people know how it operates and how it impacts their own personal lives. And the discussion today was really helpful to have the perspective of our parish presidents, our levee district leadership, our levee construction and engineering leadership, our insurance community, our bankers, our home builders, our realtors, all together talking about what's essential to make sure that we have a national flood insurance program that works for not only the citizens here in South Louisiana, but across the country. That's something certainly I'm committed to, and I'm grateful for my good friend Steve Scalise for bringing us together and letting me have a strong perspective from the end of the Mississippi River. I'm from Arkansas. Everything that we ship from Arkansas comes out of the port of New Orleans. We know how important it is, the city of New Orleans and South Louisiana, for our petrochemical business, for our international trade business, and so that's a reason why I'm glad to be here and glad to be of help listening to the citizens here. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thank you, French. And again, I know he's got maybe about 5 minutes. We're going to hear from the parish presidents as well, but before he has to go, would you be open to a question or two before you have to go? If there's any questions specifically for Congressman Hill before he has to head out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak to the prospect of any legislation in the next term regarding Risk Rating 2.0.
Yeah.
I guess what particularly you'd like to see really come about it.
Well, what I'd like to see is a longer-term reauthorization. We're now on our 17th short-term continuing resolution for the National Flood Program. And ultimately, that's not good for anybody. So we want if we want transparency and we want certainty and we want planning development districts and levee boards to understand what that program looks like, a long-term reauthorization is important. Secondly, that has to be done on a consensus basis. We've got to have consensus in the Republican Party if we're the majority party in Congress, and then we've got to go get a majority of the Congress to agree with that direction. So I'd like to be a voice for that long-term reauthorization in the new Congress, and I think I won't speak for the whip, but I know he supports a long-term reauthorization too if it's done in the right way.
Yeah, and if you go back to the last time we were in the majority, and I was the majority whip, we were able to get a 5-year reauthorization passed through the House, and it was a complicated coalition, not your normal looking Republicans versus Democrats partisan issue. It was actually a very bipartisan but more regionally based coalition in the bill that we passed through the House. And there are people and communities all across the country that understand the importance of having a viable working flood insurance program. When we passed the bill through the House, it did not unfortunately get 60 votes in the Senate, and they weren't able to get it done over on that side. But at least we showed how we can get a coalition to make reforms to the program that allow it to be affordable and sustainable. And those are the two ingredients that are missing in Risk Rating 2.0. When they set that program up, number one, they didn't set up a program that was going to be affordable. And in fact, we've seen thousands of people drop their flood insurance policies just in the last year here in South Louisiana. I'm sure there's a trend going all across the nation. FEMA initially started putting up numbers, and then they pulled the data down. You know, why is FEMA afraid of being transparent with the results of their plan? And those are the sort of things we'd like to look into. Let's at least have some hearings where FEMA can come and explain how they came to the decision to come up with the methodology behind Risk Rating 2.0. But I think it's embarrassing that FEMA refuses to even meet today with people who build levees, parish leaders who invest millions and billions of dollars into better flood protection. And after they do that, FEMA still gives higher premium increases and won't explain how they came to those rate hikes. That's inexcusable. Those are the kind of things we want to get deeper into.
Why is it that Congress can't force them to do that?
Well, right now, we're not in the majority. We've asked them. I've asked for meetings with FEMA to sit down with the people actually build the levees, and they refuse to be transparent, to show them how they got to their methodology. If we're in the majority, we actually have subpoena power. We have more ability to force and compel those agencies to come and just share with the public how they came to their decisions. You know, what was interesting, I know Michael Hecht isn't here right now, but he was here early. He went and sat down with some of those those FEMA officials, and they were telling him that they don't have to show him the information, and they tried to equate themselves to a private insurance company. He said, private insurance company isn't run with taxpayer dollars, you are. And so kind of having this cavalier attitude that they don't have to answer to anybody, that will change come January if they keep that attitude. But at the same time, if they're going to make major decisions as federal bureaucrats that are going to have a devastating impact on families all across this country, the least they can do is explain how they got to those decisions. And if those decisions are flawed, and we contend they're basing their premium hikes in Risk Rating 2.0 on flawed data and a lack of transparency, that has to change. And thank you, French. Have a safe flight back. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate that. Now I'd like to ask some of our parish presidents to come talk. Cynthia Shane.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Scalise, Congressman Hill, for being here and hosting this meeting. When I go to public meetings and I get asked the question of what is the biggest threat to Jefferson Parish, I will say it's Risk Rating 2.0. Home ownership is still considered an American dream, and this threatens that. You know, I just learned in this meeting, we think in Jefferson Parish, which holds 20% of Louisiana's flood insurance policies, we already lost 3,000 people in the first year. And knowing that the first year was limited to an 18% increase, and next year could be another 18% increase. This is just going to escalate by the number of people who are going to drop their policies. So it's critical. I share with my fellow parish presidents, we're on the ground after the storm. We were on the ground after Ida, and to see the despair in people's eyes. But it's that despair of somebody who doesn't have that insurance is critical, and that's where so much of our time and effort is in trying to rebuild your life, is when you don't have that. So if people are dropping it, they're not dropping it because they want to drop it. Of course, everybody has their own self-interest to protect their investment. They're dropping it because they can't afford it, and that's what's so concerning to all of us, is that people want to protect their asset, their biggest asset. And if they're dropping it, they don't want to drop it, but that is a financial choice that they have to make with their family. And the thought that this is going to increase every year is very, very troubling. Thank you.
Congressman Scalise, thanks for being here with us today, and thanks for Congressman Hill. You know, Congressman Scalise has been a great advocate since we started this mission over 2 years ago, trying to ask FEMA, what is in the algorithm and how are you coming up with these rates for our residents? And when they can't answer that, when they look you in the face on a conference call or on a Zoom call and they say, well, we know we don't have all the data, but yet we continue to roll out this program, and we see our residents facing what used to be $500 and $600 a year flood insurance policies that are now $5,000 and $6,000 a year flood insurance policies, it's very frustrating for us because we have to meet those residents in the grocery stores, at the pharmacies, and we have to answer those questions about why we can't fix this. And as hard as we work with our congressional delegation, it's frustrating for FEMA to still not be able to answer those questions. It's frustrating as a lot of us focus on economic development and economic redevelopment after Hurricane Ida, when we try to not only retain the businesses that we have in our parishes, but to be able to recruit new ones, to be able to recruit doctors to our healthcare organizations, to be able to recruit teachers to our schools and our universities, with the uncertainty of what those FEMA policies are going to look like. It's hard to try to grow our parishes, to maintain the status quo. As we try to rebuild after the storm, as we try to put people back in affordable housing, as we try to put people back into their own homes through FEMA grants and FEMA loans, to have those people walk away from those programs because at the end of it, they can't afford their flood insurance is just unacceptable. So we appreciate all the hard work of our delegation, and we look forward to hopefully after the new year being able to solve this problem with some new leadership in Washington, D.C. and in Congress.
Again, I'll echo the thanks to our to Congressman Scalise and Hill for being here. It was really nice to have that opportunity, and I think you've all heard it. It's been said, the uncertainty, anything in our lives that are uncertain causes so much grief and so much anxiety. And in this case, it's about every facet of our lives, because it's your home, it's your business, it's the lifeblood of our communities being questioned in the unstable environment on what it's going to cost to operate. And FEMA won't listen. And we have the experts. You have the experts from all over South Louisiana, much less across all of the coast of the country, that can help solve this, and no one's listening to this group. In this current administration, federal administration, talks about being fair and equitable. Well, some of the people that are getting hit the hardest are ones who can least afford it. They're going to lose their homes whenever they can barely afford their home now because of these increases. And then you look at the majority of it is just middle-class America, middle class. All of us who work hard every day put, like Archie said earlier, put on their work boots and their hard hat and go to work. This isn't a second home. This isn't a beachfront property. These are working-class people on a working coast. So we need to make sure that we get some stability back, that they understand, and that their affordability is a big, huge piece of it, and they understand how important it is to be equitable. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I thank you, Congressman Scalise and Congressman Hill, who was here. And if you heard Congressman Scalise actually say, we're doing the right things in Plaquemines Parish, if you see we're getting levies billed at higher protection. But again, we're not getting any relief from it. We just got $783 million from the Corps to actually raise our back levies even higher. And those people still have to elevate, and they're still not getting the benefit of getting a break on insurance. So it's been very tough. It's been very tough to explain to the constituents why this is not working. If we're following the rules, FEMA keeps moving the goal line further and further. And we're having struggles of trying to explain to our constituents why it's not working. I had a conversation with my parents, 86 and 84 years old, and they've been living in the same house for almost 60 years. Right now they pay a premium of $2,800 a month. That's before risk reduction 2.0 steps in. They're going to go up to about $7,000. They can't afford it. And then it's not just my parents, it's everyone's parents, it's everyone's constituents, it's everyone who sees this as they cannot afford to carry on flood insurance to continue what they're doing. So we stand with it. I stand with all my parish presidents. I stand with all the coalition in today, giving us some information, how we can move forward, how we can get better. Again, and it's not right, and we still can't get answers. So again, Congressman Scalise and Hill, thank you for organizing this, and we appreciate you being here.
I think what our citizens are looking for in each of our parishes is answers. Heretofore, we've had flood insurance maps that citizens and home builders and developers and realtors could look at the map and determine what their flood insurance rates would be. They cannot do that at this point. We need answers, and I want our citizens to know that we're working for them, and each one of these parish presidents are working for their respective constituents, as well as Congressman Scalise and our delegation in Washington. We continue to urge FEMA to give us some answers so that we can move forward in our parish. Thank you.
Thanks. Probably take a few more questions before we wrap up. Yeah.
Just to be clear, you're saying if Republicans take control of Congress, we can expect Congress to use their subpoena power and oversight to sort of get these answers from FEMA, or you expect Congress to be able to get these answers from
Well, we've been asking FEMA to meet with us and just sit down. It shouldn't be that confrontational, yet for whatever reason, they refuse. And look, no matter what the agency is, no matter whose party's in control of the White House, you shouldn't have to subpoena a bureaucrat to come and explain why they're doing something that has an impact on families all across America. And yet, they've cavalierly refused to come and show how they got to the decision to raise rates so dramatically in some parts of the country. And again, we've had people that actually build levees, people that understand engineering and hydrology who have pointed out flaws in how FEMA came to these decisions, and FEMA won't even meet to discuss with them what the rationale was behind risk rating 2.0. That's unacceptable for anybody. So we're going to continue asking those questions. Hopefully, they finally do come sit down with us, but if they don't, we're going to continue to push harder. Did you have one? Okay. Yeah.
I just want to ask just about the tweet that Congressman Higgins sent out yesterday. I know you've endorsed him, sort of making light of this attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband. Wondering sort of what you thought about that.
I haven't seen his tweet, but when you're talking about Paul Pelosi, I was very clear the minute I heard about the attack on Paul Pelosi that we should all speak out against violence of any kind. I reached out to Nancy Pelosi the morning of the attack and expressed my concern and expressed my prayers. I hope Paul has a full recovery and that they get to the bottom of whatever went on, but I'm glad at least they have the attacker in custody, and nobody should condone any kind of violence against anyone. I've been very clear about that, including the morning of the attack. All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate y'all coming out. Thank all the parish presidents for being a part of this important roundtable.